As Donald Trump embarked on his last weekend before Election Day, his campaign took an unexpected turn into a chaotic series of rallies that seemed to reveal a candidate losing control of his own message. Trump's usual high-energy style gave way to dark, meandering speeches that were as unpredictable as they were unsettling. With diminishing crowds, inflammatory statements, and apparent lapses in memory, Trump's final tour left many wondering, is he trying to lose? Here's an in-depth analysis of Trump's last days on the campaign trail and how they could be the deciding factor in one of the most anticipated elections in American history. 1. From energy to exhaustion, Trump's decline in campaign stamina. Trump's final weekend was marked by an observable decline in the energy and clarity that once defined his rallies. He began the weekend in Pennsylvania, a key battleground state where he hoped to rally support. However, his appearance was marred by erratic comments and a visible lack of focus. The same man who once commanded attention with his fiery rhetoric seemed exhausted, often losing his place mid-sentence or repeating phrases without making his usual impactful points. Reports from within Trump's campaign indicate that the former president was exhausted and possibly overwhelmed by the relentless pace of rallies. His team was working overtime to ensure that he maintained his energy levels, but fatigue was clearly setting in. The result was a series of low-energy speeches that failed to inspire his usual fervor. At each stop, his performance became more unfocused, often veering into off-topic remarks or grievances that seemed disconnected from his campaign's central themes. 2. Missteps on the stage, a catalog of gaffes. One of the recurring features of Trump's final weekend was his tendency to make noticeable gaffes on stage. In North Carolina, he referred to one of his own supporters, David McCormick, as a great leader here in North Carolina, when McCormick was actually running for office in Pennsylvania. The crowd's puzzled reaction only added to the awkwardness, as Trump moved on without acknowledging the mistake. Later, in Georgia, he mistakenly referenced Pennsylvania, leaving his supporters confused as he struggled to regain the thread of his message. These mistakes were not isolated incidents. Over the course of the weekend, Trump made several similar errors, prompting speculation about his cognitive state. Many wondered if the stress of the campaign was beginning to affect his focus and memory, casting doubt on his ability to handle the responsibilities of another term. These repeated gaffes underscored a theme of unpredictability and raised questions about his readiness, not just to win but to govern. 3. Dwindling crowds, a visual indictment of Trump's waning influence. A striking feature of Trump's final rallies was the noticeably smaller crowds. What was once his greatest strength, his ability to draw massive gatherings, seemed to be dwindling. Images of half-empty venues circulated on social media, showing a clear contrast to the packed arenas of his 2016 campaign. In one Georgia rally, the optics were particularly troubling. The first few rows of seats directly behind Trump remained filled, but beyond that, rows and rows of empty chairs stretched into the distance. In Pennsylvania, some attendees started leaving early, and even Trump's diehard supporters appeared less enthusiastic, often looking around or checking their phones as he spoke. This decline in attendance wasn't just a matter of optics, it spoke volumes about the waning influence of Trump's message. The same fervor that had propelled him into office now appeared to be slipping away, replaced by a sense of fatigue among both the candidate and his audience. 4. Divisive and violent rhetoric. The press should be shot. Trump has long had a combative relationship with the media, but his final weekend marked a disturbing escalation in rhetoric. At a rally, he suggested that the press should be shot, a comment that sparked outrage among journalists and freedom of the press advocates alike. This comment, made in the heat of the moment, was not only shocking but also deeply troubling given the already tense atmosphere in the United States regarding media trust and the freedom of journalists. The escalation to violent rhetoric alienated some of his moderate supporters, who felt that his campaign had crossed a line. Critics were quick to point out the danger of such statements, particularly from someone with a large, devoted following. This comment reflected Trump's frustration but also underscored a deeper problem. His campaign was running out of ideas, resorting instead to incendiary statements that did more harm than good to his image. 5. Alienating Latino voters. The garbage comment fallout. The weekend also saw Trump's campaign make a significant misstep with Latino voters, a demographic already skeptical of his policies. In Georgia, Trump brought out Alina Habba, one of his legal advisors, who referred to America's garbage. The comment seemed to align with a previous controversial remark from Trump's campaign about Puerto Rico, where one surrogate called the island a floating pile of garbage. The backlash from Latino communities was swift and fierce. The comments were seen as insulting and disrespectful, adding to a series of perceived slights against Latino voters. Polling data from Univision indicated that Latino support was overwhelmingly swinging in favor of Kamala Harris, who had taken a more inclusive approach to these voters. For Trump, who had already struggled to connect with this demographic, the remarks may have sealed his fate, pushing undecided Latino voters firmly into the Harris camp. 6. Epstein and conspiracies. Habba's Epstein list comments spark speculation. Trump's ties to Jeffrey Epstein have long been a source of controversy, but during his final weekend, his campaign brought them back into the spotlight. Alina Habba, in another troubling moment, voiced her desire to see the Epstein list exposed. While her comment played well with the crowd, it risked bringing unwanted attention back to Trump's past associations with Epstein, whose connections have long been a source of controversy and speculation. Journalist Michael Wolff has detailed Trump's connections to Epstein, and many felt that Habba's comment could backfire, reviving concerns about the nature of their relationship. With Trump's past associations already under scrutiny, the Epstein reference was an unforced error that only further complicated his campaign narrative, potentially damaging his standing with moderate voters uncomfortable with his history of associations. 7. Media paranoia. Elon Musk, SNL, and allegations of unfair advantage. In one of the weekend's more unusual moments, Elon Musk, one of Trump's prominent allies, accused Saturday Night Live, SNL, of providing an unfair advantage to Kamala Harris by featuring her in a skit. Musk's accusation quickly gained traction among Trump supporters, who viewed it as evidence of a media conspiracy against the former president. While Musk's comments rallied some supporters, the media-focused paranoia seemed out of place as the election drew near. Rather than focusing on policy or unity, Trump's closing message was about media manipulation and bias, a message that resonated with his base, but did little to win over undecided or moderate voters. This narrative further fueled a sense of grievance and victimhood, casting Trump as a candidate more focused on settling scores than leading the country. As Election Day approached, Trump's final weekend was marked by chaos, controversy, and a troubling lack of cohesion. Rather than uniting his supporters and delivering a powerful final argument, Trump's rallies became a platform for grievances, personal attacks, and bizarre statements. His exhausted appearance, diminishing crowds, inflammatory rhetoric, and divisive messages only reinforced a sense of decline and disarray. For Trump's opponents, this weekend may have cemented their belief that he is no longer fit for office. His supporters, meanwhile, were left with a sobering image of a candidate who seemed, at times, to be losing control. While some may see his unfiltered approach as a sign of authenticity, others view it as a disturbing display of a campaign in freefall. In the end, Trump's final days on the campaign trail served as a stark reminder of the turbulent presidency he offered and the chaos he brought to the political landscape. Whether or not he wins, Trump's final weekend on the campaign trail will be remembered as a descent into controversy, raising questions about his legacy and his capacity to lead in a divided America.